The night rain came like broken glass from the heavens, slicing through the silence of a lonely road on the outskirts of Montana. The wind howled through the pine trees, whispering warnings no one could hear. And somewhere along that dark stretch of asphalt, slick, cold, and unforgiving, a motorcycle lay toppled near a ditch. Its engine hissed weakly, steam curling up like the last breath of a dying beast. Lying beside it, half-conscious and bleeding, was a man covered in tattoos, the unmistakable patch of the Hells Angels glinting on his leather jacket. His name was Ryder Kane. 3 miles away, in a small wooden house tucked between the forest and an empty highway, Grace Miller stirred awake to the distant sound of metal and thunder. She was 34, a single mother trying to keep life from falling apart. Her son, Eli, only 9 years old, slept soundly in the next room, the only reason she still pushed through each day. Grace had been living paycheck to paycheck, working double shifts at a roadside diner since her husband's death in a construction accident 2 years ago. The grief hadn't left her, it had only turned into quiet strength and a fragile hope that somehow, kindness still meant something in a cruel world. When she heard the crash again, faint but certain this time, she hesitated for only a second. She didn't know that the decision she made that night, the decision to help, would change her life forever. If you believe in kindness, second chances, and the power of doing good even when it's hard, then please take a moment to like, comment, share, and subscribe to our channel Kind Fire Moments, where every story reminds us that the smallest act of compassion can change everything. Grace grabbed her coat, slipped on her boots, and drove her old truck toward the sound. The rain blinded her, but her instincts pulled her forward. When her headlights finally caught the wreckage, her heart stopped. The man was barely moving, his breathing shallow, blood seeping through his jacket. For a moment she thought he was already gone, until his eyes flickered open, wild with pain. She didn't recognize him, but she saw the fear behind his roughness, the same fear she'd once seen in her dying husband's eyes. Without a second thought, she lifted his heavy arm, dragged him into her truck, and drove home. Inside her small kitchen, the storm raged against the windows as she cleaned his wounds. His ribs were bruised, his shoulder dislocated. She worked silently, trembling but determined. When Eli walked in, sleepy-eyed and scared, he whispered, "Mom, who is he?" She looked at the stranger and said softly, "Someone who needs help." For 2 days, the biker drifted in and out of consciousness. Grace kept him alive with warm soup and makeshift bandages. She learned his name, Ryder. He was rough, guarded, and cold when he woke. But when he saw the little boy handing him water, something inside him softened. He muttered a thank you that sounded like gravel scraping across stone. Grace told him to rest, not knowing that every hour he spent there brought more danger closer to her door. Ryder wasn't just a biker. He had been running, from his own gang. He'd tried to leave after years of violence, drugs, and blood debts. But the Angels didn't forgive traitors. The crash had happened because they were chasing him down the highway. He knew they'd come for him again. But now there was a woman and a child involved, something he hadn't expected, something that shook him to his core. Days turned into nights filled with unease. Grace noticed unmarked bikes parked far away on the road. Strange shadows lingered near her property line. Ryder grew restless, pacing near the windows, his hand never far from the knife he kept hidden. When she confronted him, his truth came spilling out, and it broke her. He told her who he was, what he'd done, and why men with skull tattoos would kill him and anyone near him. Grace wanted him gone, terrified of what she'd brought into her home, but then Eli walked in, holding Ryder's patched jacket in his small hands, asking, "Are you a bad guy?" That question cracked something inside Ryder. He looked into the boy's innocent eyes and couldn't answer. For the first time in his life, he wanted to be better than the man he'd been. That night, he told Grace to take Eli and leave before it was too late. But Grace refused. "If they're coming," she said, "then you're not facing them alone." Her voice shook, but there was something unbreakable in it, the kind of courage born only in a mother who's already lost everything once. The storm returned the next evening, like fate repeating itself. When the rumble of engines echoed down the road, Ryder knew the angels had found him. He stepped outside into the rain, ready to face his past. Grace followed him to the porch, gripping her son's hand. The bikers arrived in a blur of chrome and headlights, surrounding the small house like wolves around a lamb. Their leader, a towering man named Bishop, called out, "You think you can run from us, brother?" Ryder shouted back, "You'll have to go through me." But before the fight could begin, Grace stepped forward, fearless. "He's hurt and done running," she said. "Whatever he did, it's over. You want blood? Take mine first." Her voice trembled, but her eyes never left theirs. For a moment, even the gang hesitated. The woman standing before them wasn't a threat, but her courage disarmed them more than any weapon could. Bishop stared at her, then at Ryder, and for a brief second, something human flickered in his eyes. "You're lucky," he growled finally. "The kid saved your life." Then he revved his bike and led the others away into the storm, leaving nothing but silence behind. Ryder collapsed to his knees, shaking from pain and disbelief. Grace ran to him, holding his head against her chest, whispering, "It's over." He didn't cry, but his shoulders trembled. For the first time in years, he felt the weight of forgiveness. In the weeks that followed, Ryder helped repair Grace's roof, fixed her old truck, and played catch with Eli. He stayed until he could stand again, then left quietly one morning, leaving a note that simply said, "You saved me when I didn't deserve saving. I'll spend the rest of my life earning it." A year later, a letter arrived with no return address. Inside was a photo of Ryder wearing clean clothes, working with a group of veterans at a motorcycle rehab shelter. On the back, a few words were written in rough handwriting, "Tell Eli I kept my promise." Grace smiled through her tears. She placed the photo beside her husband's picture on the mantel, two men she'd helped find peace in different ways. And when Eli asked if they'd ever see Ryder again, she said, "Maybe one day. But what matters is, he found his road." If this story touched your heart, please take a moment to like, share, and subscribe to Kind Fire Moments, because somewhere out there, one act of kindness might be saving someone you'll never even know. Special request to all viewers. Please comment, "Kindness saves lives," below if you believe the world still needs more hearts like Grace's.